This is part 20, Your Worldview. This might be the most important part of this entire series. I probably have said that about almost every part of this series. Our worldviews are often formed by people we have never met, likely never have even heard of, and have long since died. We do not choose the circumstances of our birth, and we often unwittingly allow such accidental circumstances to stand in place of discovering our higher self. The most important realization to make when it comes to building your awareness of word magic is that the patterns of your thinking were formed thousands of years ago and handed down to you by countless generations that preceded you. In a very real sense, your patterns of thinking were laid down like train tracks across the landscape long ago, before you were even born, before your parents, forever were even born. Even the newer rail lines added along the way through human history all lead to the original system of tracks. It is exceedingly difficult and painful to leave these established routes. But it is also just as painful to stay there. Making this recognition and accepting that your thoughts are not really your own to begin with. Therefore, you are not your thoughts at all. This allows the seeker to break this association with thoughts being the self, right? Confusing thoughts for being who you are. These are my thoughts, therefore this is me, right? We have this association, and vice versa. After all, you cannot break a spell that you remain completely unaware of. So then what are you to do about this? Developing the ability to be able to separate your imago, and the imago is this mental image you have of yourself, this mental image you have of the world, right? Separating this imago from the tens of thousands of thoughts and beliefs which appear in your mind every single day. And this sounds difficult because it is. Mastering your own mind is a daily practice. From birth, we are taught what to think. We're just absorbing things until age 7, right? Through this theta brainwave state, we're just absorbing. But we rarely, if ever, are taught how to think or how to properly manage our inner dimensions, how to manage our inner resources, right? This is something that you only maybe stumble upon through a friend, or you just find out about this somewhere else, but this isn't something that you are going to be taught in most schools. However, there are certain techniques that you can do right now in order to start taking control of your own mind and limit the number of thoughts that appear, which may often trick you into conflating both thought and imago with this self that you believe you are, right? And even if you can't, at least in the beginning, limit the number of thoughts, you will at least cultivate your inner resources enough so that these thoughts can just come in, and then they can come in through the front door and go out the back door. And you have the watcher sitting on the couch, as it were, just watching these preposterous creatures enter your dwelling, and you just kind of look at them without judging, and you watch as they leave. And the watcher begins to have a sense that, oh, these things just come in all the time. That's just how it is. They come in and they go. Okay, that's just what they do, right? So then you're not being tricked into, or you're not allowing yourself to be deluded into thinking that these things that are coming into your dwelling, right? They're coming into the watcher's dwelling. They don't really have anything to do with you. They're just ephemeral visitors. They're just coming in and they're going. It's kind of preposterous. I mean, just imagine if you're sitting in your home and you leave your door open. You leave your front door and the back door open, and you just let people walk through. Right? And you just kind of sit there and you just observe people. You're just people watching, right? But these people are thoughts, and they all have their different ideas, and they're all telling you something. They're all trying to get your attention, and some of them are really outrageous and wild, and some of them are very scary and dark, right? And they walk by, and you're just kicking back on the couch, just observing the show, right? Right? They've got all manner of interesting things to say, and scary things, and exciting things, and hopeful things, and tragic things, but you're just observing, right? It's like going to a store and the sales associate says, "Hey, can I help you find something?" I'm just looking, right? If you can go to a store and just look, and that's a good practice, by the way. You can go somewhere, well, not right now because of the lockdown, but you can, after this coronavirus lockdown lets up, that's a great practice. You can go to a store and have no intention at all except to look, and just practice looking. And then when someone says, "Can I help you?" and then another sales associate comes up, "Hey, can I help you find something?" and another one, "Hey, can I help you find something?" You can cultivate that practice of the watcher, just observing these people, not feeling annoyed that they're asking you something, nor feeling excited that someone's finally talking to you, or whatever the case may be, whatever your mental state is at the moment, right? And you can just practice this observing. Later on, you can think and you can feel, and you can let these things, you can analyze these things in every which way possible, but practice cultivating your inner resources, right? And then at some point, you'll begin to discover that all of these thoughts that are coming in the front door and leaving the back door, if you're just observing, that they're not you at all. And then you can start asking yourself, well, who am I then? If I'm not these interesting thoughts coming in and out of every kind of thought possible, then what am I? Who am I? Right? That's kind of the beginning. So one effective way, or another effective way, I should say, is to sit with a pen and paper and just catch one of these thoughts. Okay? You actively try to catch one of these that comes into your mind, and have some fun with it. Write this thought down. Inspect it closely. Ask yourself if this thought you just wrote down is really you. Is this me? What is this? Where did this thought come from? Right? Or think about this thought and try to find out if it's just running along some sort of pre-established track of thinking that appears in your mind from time to time from seemingly nowhere. Of course, these thoughts can crop up from the unconscious, right? When they seemingly come out of nowhere, the unconscious is doing lots of processing, and maybe they pop out from the unconscious. They're processed in the unconscious in a totally different way. When they appear in the conscious mind, they are interpreted a little differently, of course. But you can still watch them, be aware of them, know, oh, these things are always coming in through the front door, and eventually they leave. The thought doesn't stay there, right? They come in, they go, right? So just let them do what they do. And that path of least resistance, allowing that to happen at some point may lead you to a realization that really these thoughts they're not who I am. They're not me, right? Even though a lot of people can get wrapped up in believing that. So is it actually you that's doing all of this thinking, right? Contemplate on this. Or is it more accurate to say that the real you is closer to that awareness within yourself? Are you getting closer to the real you if you're just watching? Right? Is that watcher who you are? Is that watcher closer to who you are than these thoughts that come in out of nowhere? Because if the thoughts are you, then it really doesn't make sense that your thoughts would be coming out of nowhere and then going away. But that's what they do. So that can't be you, right? So maybe the real you is closer to this watcher that you're cultivating, this awareness, right? This very awareness is able to observe and catch those thoughts and write them down, right? So which specific part of what is going on in your thoughts is you exactly, right? So really look at some of these dynamics that are happening in your own mind and ask yourself, well, where do I factor in all of this? If all of this is just going on without my say-so, right? Because, you can actively think of a thought. You can actively decide I'm going to think about this. I'm going to work on this problem. I'm going to think about this. But at the same time, you have thousands of thoughts that just pop in and then they go away, right? You didn't decide that those would come in, right? You could be working on something else and then another thought occurs to you. Where did this thought come from, right? What's going on with that? That's worth looking into. So even if you catch just one thought by writing it down, that would have previously caused you to feel, maybe this thought made you feel depressed or anxious. Then this represents great progress if you can understand that you are not your thoughts. This you that you imagine yourself to be, right? Definitely doesn't have anything to do with your thoughts. Nor is it you that is even doing most of the thinking that goes on throughout the day, right? Let that sink in. This is a great quote by Sensei Kano. He is the founder of Judo. And he said, if there is effort, there is always accomplishment. Okay. There's a saying in the practice of judo that, and it probably came from somewhere else, probably came from Confucianism or Confucius or something. But there's a saying that a mountain is built one small stone at a time or one pebble at a time, right? So even just the effort, just making the effort, right? Just making some sort of effort is progress, right? Belief is the wound that knowledge heals. So letting go of as much belief as possible is the best starting point for gaining a high-level awareness and word magic proficiency. This can be very tricky, however, because what one may think as knowledge can quickly calcify as a belief in the mind and a belief in the body. Okay? Knowledge is a knowing of, but it is not the same as understanding, right? We've talked a lot about this difference between knowledge and understanding. To understand is akin to being itself, okay? If knowledge is a knowing of, I know of this, right? I know of this place, but I've never been there, for example. That's a knowing. I've been to this place, therefore I understand what it's like, right? That's the difference between knowledge and understanding. Those two are conflated so often It's one of the classic mistakes in thinking. It's one of the classic mistakes in thinking that people, when they try to transfer their knowledge to someone else, they're not really considering, or they're not accounting for the fact that knowledge and understanding are not equivalent. Knowledge can be transferred, understanding cannot be transferred, right? It's a fundamental trap of thinking that most people, unfortunately, have not realized, and maybe will never realize and will never crawl out of, right? So cultivating your own understanding of yourself and the world is ultimately personal, and it cannot be faithfully imparted through any means of knowledge and human communication. So no matter how articulate you may be, you cannot transfer understanding to someone else, right? You can transfer knowledge, but understanding is completely different. How you interpret something can only, at the end of the day, be fully understood 100% by you. Even scientific data, right? Even scientific data, it does not escape this, right? Although I would say that scientific data and the language of mathematics is probably obviously the most easily, the most purely transferable form of knowledge to understanding. But even that, you cannot confirm what someone understands about the data, right? It's just not possible. So belief is a ready-made opinion that you can identify yourself with. And knowledge represents the map of the landscape. Knowledge is kind of I'm aware of this part of the forest. I know this part of the forest because I have this map in front of my face, right? But understanding is the actual landscape in which you inhabit, right? Understanding is to take, I don't need this map because I know this rock's over here, this tree next to this pond. You are intimately aware of the actual landscape, right? That's the difference between belief, knowledge, and understanding. Holding on to a belief will never lead you to understanding, nor will it allow you to open to the vast possibilities within yourself. A belief is a ready-made opinion, which means it was created by someone else. If you take someone else's opinion and that becomes, you believe that is how you understand the world, if you form your understanding through the beliefs of others, then you essentially are living a second-hand existence. Your reality is second-hand, and you are, in a very real sense, just a second-hand, you have a second-hand understanding of the world, right? Which is quite tragic, because everyone does have the opportunity to come into a primary understanding of the world, right? So holding on to belief doesn't lead to understanding, nor will it allow you to open to the vast possibilities within yourself. It kind of limits, right? Belief is almost like this roadblock that cuts you off from going into other possibilities, exploring possibilities within yourself. What are the other possibilities? Well, I don't know. I haven't explored them, right? I haven't accessed my inner resources. So only by honoring the observer within you and keeping a beginner's mind will this deeper understanding, this primary understanding happen, by cultivating the watcher within you, by cultivating a higher and higher level of awareness.